Here's what I can tell you. I just went to the powers that be and said, this is what I'm thinking. And then, like I said, I can't really get into detail, but there was a lot of back and forth. And then, and we worked out an amicable deal.
If Casey wasn't there, Gary would not have been able to hold John back. We would have had a fight in the hallway for real. Yeah.
MARCI came in and, she kind of took over the show, and then Howard didn't re-sign, and that was it. It was over.
But the contract ended at In Demand, which was, we sort of knew was coming, and then just the way it actually was informed to us was little disheartening, a little confusing, a little surprising. It sort of happened on the air where it was sort of a mistake made where the announcement was made on the air before the staff actually knew. Sort of a misstep there. And without getting into the minutia, there was...
Or was it?
Someone screwed that up.
Or was it?
Someone screwed that up.
Yeah.
It was a miscommunication was the excuse. But that was strange. And then it just sort of ended, and it was strange. It was a weird way to end after such a long time with so many people that were so committed and loyal and dedicated to the show. Whatever. You just move on.
I have just a couple.
True colors came out, but I don't really know what happened. It's sort of people are just sort of scratching their heads still to this day.
Well, we'll continue to scratch our heads, and then we move into the 2013, and we've seen on YouTube there's the summit meeting. What was that like as he's sort of changing, and as Gary would always say, evolving? Quote. What was the summit meeting like for you when you see Howard on that stage saying, I want A-listers? Were you aware that this was what he was coming with?
It was game over. It was game over for me. We were on an attack that was so powerful and so successful. If there was when you do a change like that, you got to show value add. You got to show to the audience why you're doing what you're doing. It's not that it was wrong what he did. It was in the way that it happened that was wrong. So, but it is what it is. It's his bat, his ball, his game. So he can do whatever he'd like to do. So God bless him.
Yeah, and you said it was the beginning of the end. The end happened so weirdly. I know you've told this story before, but your father passes away, right? And you've decided this is kind of be my time where I want to maybe take a leave of absence. Tell me that story, because it does really. When I heard this, I'm like, man, that's a terrible way to end it for a guy who's been with him so long.
Yeah, it was personal, and I said, okay, whatever, and I just let it go. But it was a moment. It was a lot of things. Both my parents were dying at the same time. That was very hard. I never even knew how to even deal with that, and it was tough. Because I literally dedicated my life to Howard. I moved from Philadelphia to New York on my own dime. I believed in him and what we were doing so deeply, and it was such a part of my life. And when that happened, it was tough. But life goes on. You pick up and you move on.
Yeah, so you did move on. But how long does it take to get over not being there? Because at this point, essentially, he just says you wanted to take a leave of absence, and he goes, "I'm just going to let you go." Which did he ever explain what that was about? But then, secondly.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't deserve discussion. But the thing is, you pick up, you move on. It's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get up. And it literally, like when the Howard TV crew was cut loose, Doug called me up and said, "Hey, I just got fired." I'm like, I said, "Dude, it's the best thing that'll ever happen to you." And he goes, "Why? What do you mean?" I said, "It'll take you 2 months to recoup, to get your soul back, your heart back, your psyche back, your sleep patterns back, and all that kind of stuff, because you live it every single day. You're brainwashed. You're living in a bubble. And when you get out of it and you see that there's life outside of it, you go, oh my God, and it really is like a rebirth. And so So, it's what you go through, and life has its ups and downs. And that was one of the greatest ups of my career. And I'll be forever grateful. But, you move on, you rebuild yourself, and it takes time. So it's all good. We would all, if you weren't in bed by 8 o'clock at night or by 9 o'clock at the latest and falling asleep because you had to get up at 4 in the morning, 3:30, 4 in the morning. And it's grueling, and you do that every single day. It's everybody's sleep deprived, everybody's stressed out, and you don't realize how, that affects you. And it does affect you, and then when you start to get a normal night's sleep and you don't have that day-to-day pressure on you, all of a sudden you start breathing better, you start feeling better, and it's different. So
when Howard mentions that he's going to Sirius, it's on the air. Tell me about that day and just not knowing, because I think what I remember, Robin didn't even know. I mean, he kept this completely.
No. I mean, as far as I knew, I certainly didn't know. Nobody knew, and and there was a panic moment, not a panic moment, but it certainly was a stress moment. And then that actually in some ways became, almost, it was kind of more difficult to deal with, than just being the editor of the show. Because now I wasn't the editor of the show anymore. There was Dead Air Dave was on the button at that point because Andre had left, and but it created a whole new, what can he do? What can he say? He figured it out. He figured out how to, how to make it work. And I think we figured out how to, and I say we, I figured out how to kind of hold it together for whatever that period. But how could he not go?
Could you have gone, and would you?
How could he have not left?
Yeah, but could you have gone? Did you ever think about going? Was that ever a thought in your mind to continue on and maybe follow him there? Is that something you could have done?
I don't know. You'd have to. I don't know. Did I think about it? Listen, I love the show. I literally, I truly. I love Howard. There are a few people, that I respect more than him. Family, Mel Karmazin and he, in terms of professionalism, I can't think of any two more professional people that, that people should aspire to try and be like. Professional, hardworking. Hopefully I was some of that. And I didn't. I'm not going to. Could I? Would I? I don't know. It didn't. Didn't go there. I was quite happy to leave when I left CBS. Maybe I would have been smarter to try and find another job at that point. I decided not to. And,
well, it just felt like you guys were intertwined together, that you might, I felt like
20 years, I don't know if he makes 20 years, I'll be jealous because I wanted to be the only manager who worked with him for that length of time. But the good news is that he's had different people. Although I guess there's the one guy whose name is going to escape me at the moment, has been there the entire time and was influential in bringing Howard over. And but when it came to radio manager, I was hoping that I was going to be able to say, well, I worked with him for 20 and nobody did it longer. And I think he's getting ready to. He's coming at the end of 15 now on Sirius, and I'm waiting, like I think everybody else is waiting to hear the new announcement, unless it's been made and I just missed it. And to see if he continues. If he does, I hope it's for 3 more years and not for 5. So I can still say I did it for 20.
Yeah, and our conversation we had before this, just on the phone, you don't have any bitterness at all. I mean, you guys, it's really nice to hear How much contact do you have with Howard? I mean, you've talked to him. You talk about him glowingly, and you said that you guys still kind of have. How often do you get a chance to maybe email him, text him, or any of that stuff?
I'm a semi-regular. I try not to bug him. When I got out of I was getting out of the car on Saturday morning. And I had listened to the Sunday morning. Now I forget. It's so long ago. It was 24 or 48 hours ago. I forget whether it was Saturday or Sunday. The days run together. I sent him a little email. So I just listened to that interview. It was great. Thank you for making my ride up. Very pleasant and going. And full of listening to two giants at what they do. Do it. And so, as I said, I'm a fan. I consider him a friend. I think he considers me the same, but I can't answer for that part. I can only answer for my part.
Do you have any favorite moments that come up when people ask you, what's your favorite moments of being on the show? Of course, beating up your suit, losing in golf to Stuttering John.
By the way, that's certainly not one of my favorite moments. Breaking my hand, punching a suit after a frustrating night of cards and then having to play it on the air. It was fine. And I wasn't, I didn't think about it. I didn't even intend to tell him that I had done it. The person I felt worse for was my poor wife, who came in after I had punched the door and she, or the suit, and then the door, and saw me and saw that, and just said, "Not now, honey." My long-suffering wife that I put her through that. Listen.
I mean, is there like a moment on the show where you're like, well, that was fun?
For the most part, it's, it was 20 years of a wonderful time, stressful at times, professionally very active. Being part of that and being associated with the show got me out of some speeding tickets. He created, like he does for everybody or a lot of people, he made me a minor personality and, in a bigger world. And that was fun, and it still happens. I still, why would you want to talk to me 20 years later? Because some of that still resonates, and I like that, as I said, I'm a big enough ham, that, I didn't shy away from that, when I was doing it professionally. There's some benefits to it, and still, and there's people who still say, "Are you?" And I go, "Yeah, yeah, that's me." And I don't hide from it. I'm proud of it.
Well, you're handsome at 74. I got to say, you still got it.
73. Don't age me prematurely, okay?
My mom's 74.
Right.
And then again, when you left there was all this. I read it and I heard Brent left. He stormed off. Tell us about just leaving, because it was just one day. You're not there anymore. Howard doesn't even really mention it. Tell us a little bit about that week where you actually have to tell them. And you're telling me it was fine. I had an idea, but tell us a little bit about that ending.
Yeah. So as much as I can tell you. Here's what I can tell you. I just went to the powers that be and said, this is what I'm thinking. And then, like I said, I can't really get into detail, but there was a lot of back and forth. And then, we worked out an amicable deal where we can all shake hands and walk away friends. But I left. And here's the thing is, lots of people say, oh, he was fired. I wouldn't be able to legally say that I was not fired. If I was fired, I'd legally, if you know anything about corporate exit agreements, it would cost me a shit ton of money if I was fired and I went out there and said I wasn't fired. It just would. It was just, I wasn't. I have no ill will towards SiriusXM. They have no ill will towards me. Same with the Stern Show. I just wanted out of New York. I wanted out of the cold. I wanted to do my own thing, and I wanted to move back into the tropics. So I'm only going to live one of three places the rest of my life, either the Tampa Bay area, New Orleans, or out in the Venice Beach, Santa Monica area of California. That's it. Those are the only three places I'm really interested in living. So I wanted to get back here, and I wanted to do my thing, and coronavirus played a a small roll into it. I'd say 10 to 15%. That pushed me over the edge. I was like, this is getting ready to get real bad in New York. I told my wife, real bad. So once I signed my exit agreement in mid-March, we weren't going to move to the end of March. We moved it up 2.5 weeks and said, we're getting out of New York area right now. So we packed everything up and we hauled ass down here. And luckily enough, I had a friend that could let me stay with him until I got an apartment let me stay with him for about a month and a half till I got this beautiful apartment for, it's a third of what I was paying in Jersey City. So in Jersey City, I had a 600 square foot apartment. Here, I've got over 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, huge, in the sweetest part of St. Pete. And it's the rent's almost nothing. We got used to paying New York prices. I'm like, really? That's what you want for this apartment? Where do I sign the lease and how long can I sign for? So I'm just much happier now.
Yeah, my goal is to be a neighbor of yours, at least in the winter, and that's what my wife and I are trying to live vicariously through you as we I don't know if we'll be coming over.
St. Pete, Brad.
Yeah.
St. Pete. That's where you want to be.
we like the West Palm, Jupiter area, kind of. That's where the Cardinals have spring training. Yeah, it's beautiful over there. It's a little more expensive, but we'll figure out a way. I'm amazed. I was looking at that because I think March 11th may have been your last day, and I'm fairly certain March 13th was the day the NBA shut down. So, I mean, that is crazy that it happened like that because we were me and my wife and my stepson were going to Disney World that next week, and she's like, I don't know if it's, she's like, they're going to close it. And we're like, everyone's like, they're not closing Disney World. It's like they don't close Florida, Clark, and they, son of a bitch, closed goddamn Disney World. So she knew about it before then. Do you get a chance? You made it sound like you don't even really want to talk to Howard, even when you're trying to do work. So I'm assuming there's been no contact with him since, right? Or has there?
When I left, there was contact with him, and it could not have been nicer. I wish I could get on here and read you the note that he sent me and the note that I sent him. As a human being, he's a sweet human being. I love him and Beth as people. They are great people. And he sent me a beautiful note when I left. And I'm just not gonna bug the guy, obviously. But I do keep in contact with almost everybody there. Just because they're friends. They've been friends of mine since 04, 05. So it's been a lot of years that I've known these people. So. And in the business, it's a small business, and once Howard retires or they trickle out and leave and go do some other stuff, who knows who might work together or who will be on whose shows. So I just try to stay in contact with everybody.
Doug has told the story here, but just do you even see that final day coming? Doug,
no. Well,
but on the air, you hear that you're not going to work there anymore, right? So tell me how that day goes for you. You said, you just almost said, well, maybe I did, but tell me just a little bit about those final days, the final kind of months.
It's pretty simple, right? We knew the contract was up. We knew it was being negotiated. We knew that they were shopping the show to other people too. We didn't know, obviously the contract was going to end at a specific date. So we didn't know anything outside of, hey, everybody's negotiating. And we were under the impression that, the negotiations were going somewhat okay and things were going to kind of all work out. And then we hear the news on the air. So that was really how we found out that the channel wasn't coming back. Was Howard's announcement.
And what did you feel? You've been there so long. Would you feel like you'd be alive there? Or how does that make you feel? Because I'm and Doug's been there a long time too. And he's an executive and I know when you lose, things don't go right. It's weird, but boy, when you're there that long and you're that loyal, and it just is sort of done dirty. Tell me what did it feel like to you?
Look, I have a different way of looking at it than probably most people. It was business on why the show didn't come back, right? And contracts, they come and they go, and sometimes they're not always done. But on the other side. On the personal side, yes, I've been there for 24 years. It's a long time. It's probably, I felt in my mind, I was not in a position that, you should find this out on the air and that's really how we're going to go out. But there was still always the chance the video portion of the show was still going to stick around in some version. So it wasn't really like, hey, you're done. Until they finally were like, yeah, I guess, no deals are being made, But yeah, it was really odd to hear it. It was really sad. It was sad for everybody that worked on the Howard TV team, because they, again, everybody really cared about this product and cared about working on the show. And I think everybody just got deflated hearing that's the way the show was going to go out and not getting, even a personal heads up an hour before, 15 minutes before anything, that, you're hearing this news on the radio and, it does hurt that way. It does sting.
Did you have a chance ever to talk to Howard about it?
No, we had very limited, I was there until the end of that year. Some people didn't last as long because, once the show was deemed that it wasn't coming back, the company had a layoff plan in place, where certain employees we were going to purge as we were going closer to the end of the contract date where, obviously we weren't going to be producing new content. So I was there, I think myself, Doug, and one other person were there to the very bitter end. But yeah, no, I mean, there was a few little interactions, but nothing really. Nothing to speak of.
Do you go, what the fuck?
Dude, I can't, this is how I've always looked at it. I can't control how somebody else reacts to things. You know what I mean? And I can't put my expectations on somebody else because they're not me, and everybody acts the way they're going to act, and they're never going to change just for me. So I took it as this is the way he is, and this is the way he acts, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and early on when you're talking about getting that kid thing, you could see him just, well, he's a kid, yeah. He's an intern. I don't need him, right? It's
yeah. Look, at the end of the day, Howard doesn't need anybody except himself, really, right? The show still, it's his name, it's his show. If everybody else disappeared, he'd still be doing a show and be all by himself and just be fine. But I think we did all bring something to that show. I don't think that we didn't have anything to do with its success. I think he would have been successful no matter what, but I do think that there were certain things that people loved about us being on the show that I think, we brought some value to that.
Right. I think it'd be awesome if I had a classic moment on the show. I will never forget your moment. Were you really, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but were you really ready to go out there to punch? Did you want to punch Stuttering John, or were you like, I'm saying that on the radio, but I'm just going to go confront him?
No, I wasn't going to punch him. I was never going to punch him with a closed fist. I always knew it would be a smack. And I still get this to this day. People say you japped him and you punched him. No, I didn't punch him. I'm a righty. I smacked him with my left hand around Gary's head, and Gary's teeth took most of the blow on my forearm.
He screams too. He goes, ah! Now I'm remembering it.
He screams out.
And KC is standing there watching, and Ronnie, no one's doing it.
Well, the thing is, I said, I'm going to go out there and smack him. And once I got to the hallway, I was like, in the hallway, I thought, well, maybe I'll just talk to him. We'll hug it out or something. But then all the cameras were lit. And I said, oh, they want something. They want some TV. Okay, let's have some TV. So when I smacked him, all hell broke loose. Now, John and I would have fought. He's a big dude. He was coming at me. And KC grabbed me, and I fell out of my sandals. So if you see in the hallway, I'm falling out of my sandals. I don't know if I fell or almost fell, but if KC wasn't there, Gary would not have been able to hold John back. We would have had a fight in the hallway for real. Yeah.
That sucks.
No doubt.
That would have been great because you got let go for that.
It would have been great.
But I think the fact that was on video, and then you had to come in and talk about it, and then he used the word Jap, and everyone's asking, what's Jap mean? We've never even heard of that. Instead, John's like, he jabbed me, he jabbed me like a Jap would do.
It wasn't a jab. Listen, when you warn a guy on a radio show that big and tell him one more call, I'm going to come in there and smack you, that's not a jab. That's a complete fair warning. And as soon as he did it, he knew I was coming in, but he thought we'd just laugh it off. John and I are fine. And for years, I've done his podcast. I actually let him smack me back on air during his show a couple of years back. He didn't want to do it, but he finally did it, and he gave me a good shot. So we're even.
So how does that day end for you? Does Tom come and tell you? Does Howard? Who tells you? All right, how do you know you're done?
But when I was with a girl, I went back to the hotel room. My shirt was ripped, and I said, "We gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go back home to my sisters on Long Island because I wasn't living in New York anymore." So we split, and then Howard called me as soon as I got to my sister's house. He was like, "Hey man, I feel so bad. It was fucking great. That was awesome. I just, I can't do anything about it because you put your hands on him." I said, "Don't worry, bro. It's fine. I did what I did. It's all good." It was solved in a couple of days. I just knew I wasn't going back, and I'd spent a month there, and I got paid back then. They paid me $500 a week to show up. Was it $500 a week? It might have been more. It was good money to show up every day. It was a really fun gig. I never thought about it being a career. I just never thought that way. But when I read the papers the next day, every headline said Benza ruins radio career. And I go, oh, people thought that might have been my next move. I didn't think that way. Might have been probably would have been the greatest thing that ever happened to me. But if I had done it, what happens to Artie Lange? The show would not have been as good with me there over Artie. No way.
Yeah,
no way.
I hate to say it, but yes, that's true. But I will say it would be awesome to be banned from.
True, I know.
You were banned from the greatest radio show of all time, and I don't know how many people they banned. I think maybe you're the only guy. Maybe High Pitch Eric, but
maybe you're right. I mean, I did about 100 appearances, but I was banned from the building, and then I called 2 more times a couple of years later. But it's not my show anymore. I don't follow it. I like his celebrity interviews, but I don't follow the day-to-day nonsense. I don't know all these guys and the dramas they have. It's not my thing. Look, when that show was on in New York City and you walked down the street and people knew you, they heard you on the radio, they saw you walking down the street, they would yell your name out. It was a wonderful feeling. I don't think that'll ever happen again. It won't happen again with radio, but when you did Howard Stern, everybody in this city, cabbies, truck drivers, the cops. I've been stopped by cops in L.A., and they've let me go because of Howard. Tell Howard I said hi. I mean, cops, firemen, construction guys, cabbies, they love Stern. Love him to this day.
So tell me, we talked about George Takei, but I think that was part of the reason what happened for you not to stay there longer, right? So I think there was a moment where maybe your daughter wanted to do. Tell me a little bit. Okay, well, yeah, let's clear that up then. So what brought this period in your life to an end?
No, in fact, no. That had absolutely nothing. No, I'll explain that, but no, that had absolutely nothing to do with me leaving. The reason I left is that my sense was that Howard was losing interest in the news team, and that is his right. It is his show. It is the most successful show in the history of radio. So I had 5 or 6 really good years there. But wherever I work, if I get a sense that there's so much interest in what we do anymore, I want to move on. So that was the single reason why I left. I'm not sure they were pleased when they knew I was leaving, but it was time for me to go. But in terms of the George Takei thing, I mean, listen, part of it's shtick. Who the hell knows? But Howard said something about, I asked George if my young daughter could interview him briefly on the phone about the internment camps. And Howard was like, how dare you? And I was like, well, first of all, Howard, I'm not sure you should be getting my children involved on the Stern show, because obviously it was our policy and practice never to talk about his show.
What? So you were around, right, when MARCI comes in? Were you part of that when she does the turnover?
Yeah, that's when it kind of ended. So MARCI came in and she kind of took over the show, and then Howard didn't re-sign, and that was it. It was over, And to me, I was just like, all right, it's over. I worked there for 16 years, and I was like, you know what? This was a great experience. I work in television, man. I had jobs that was supposed to go 3 years, and they went a month. So shit ends. It's going to happen. So I wasn't really pissed off. I was just kind of like, the only thing I was kind of mad at is that I found out like everybody else on the air. That was the weird thing. It was like, we didn't know what was going to happen. We're like, Doug, what's happening? He's like, I don't know. We don't know. Blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, Howard's like, yeah, we're not going to do the Howard TV anymore. It's done. And we're like, we all turned around and looked at Doug like, what? And he goes, this is the first I'm hearing about it. And it's true that we all found out together. That's my only bad, thing about the show is that's how I found out. It would have been nice to know beforehand because we knew something was happening, but we didn't know if he was going to stream and keep it on the stream, or we didn't know what the hell was going to happen. So it turns out we found out, and that was it. So I was like, all right, that night we got a call or an email. That's it. We got a month left of production, and then it's over. And we did our last month, and which was kind of great, too, because Metallica had to come in, and we went to the Apollo show, and we're like fifth row, and we're watching the Metallica like right in front of our faces. And then they came in 2 days later. It was a Friday night show. They came in on Monday, or maybe a Saturday night show, whatever night it was. And they came in on Monday. And that was kind of cool, too, because I was talking to the management. I knew some of the guys from the management of Metallica from Q Prime. And when they came in, Gary walked in with a piece of paper, and he's like, here you go, Brian. And the guys from the management from Q Prime went to Metallica, and they all had them sign the set list and gave me the set list. That's cool. That was like a great going away present. I was like, holy shit, a fucking Metallica signed set list from the Apollo, a show that, was a once in a lifetime show. So that was pretty cool. That was a good way to go out.
But leaving the show, you left it in 2001. You said it was like that schedule, the morning. Just tell me a little bit about making that decision. I know you had a lot of contract.
No,
there's a lot of negotiations.
Really weird. It's like anything. There was a million things piled on top of each other, and I drew a line in the sand. And it's funny because the bullshit. Because a couple of months later, I actually went back and said, "Look, I'd love to come back for the deal." Because I didn't realize how much I was going to miss sitting around and laughing so hard. You don't miss the fame or the money. It was just like, wow, you just don't have that much fun anywhere else. But I was drinking too much, and my wife and I were on the outs for years. But there was no way I was going to quit drinking. There was no way I was going to split up with my wife because I couldn't go looking for a place to live because I was working, 25 hours a day, writing the TV shows and doing the radio show and going out and doing stand-up and releasing CDs. And then I go away for a weekend to Las Vegas or Chicago to work, and they pay me so much money. And then when I finally would have a weekend off, the last thing I was going to do was go shopping for an apartment. So I was kind of stuck in no man's land, and there was no way I was going to quit drinking. And I said, you know what, I'm going to ask for a certain amount of money, and if they pay it, I'll stay, and if they don't, I'm going to get my life back, which sounds crazy. I was making a lot of money, but not relative to, we were printing money. K-Rock was printing money. It was zillions and zillions of dollars. I was like, you know what? I've been here since the beginning. Nobody else wants to ask, but the hell with them. Cut me in. And they didn't even want to talk. So that was that. To this day, people say, "Oh, it's the worst decision anybody ever made, ever." Blah blah blah. And yesterday, I celebrated whatever you call it, 19 years sober. And, you never know. Like, I put my jokes on Twitter and 10 people will like the joke or 20 people will like the joke. I know a lot more people read it, but nobody. And yesterday I said, oh, by the way, I've been sober for 19 years. And 1,300 people liked it and responded. And, there's insults here and there. But, it's just crazy. It just, what happened had to happen. It really did. People are like, why didn't you stay 5 years? I might have wound up dead. I might have ran my car into a pole. Who knows? So you just got to go with your gut and do what you do.
Yeah. How hard? But
I never claimed to be smart.
But how hard? How hard was that year though when they're doing the Win Jackie's Money and Howard is just saying no, he's not coming back, and you did ask to come back, and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? How hard was that year?
No, listen. When I said I'd love to, I knew that ship had sailed. I knew there was no way they would take me back, but I knew I should ask. But listen, you got to be ready to walk away when you're negotiating. It was Sophie's choice. You know, it was fine. You know, it really was fine, you know. I mean, I didn't listen. I didn't care. You know, it's like, you know, but I also realized I had to quit drinking because, well, I couldn't get divorced while I was on the show because they would have dragged that in front of the whole listeners, and that would have been unfair to me and my wife and my family, and there was no way I was going to quit drinking if I was still on the show. But when I got off, I realized, holy Christ, I got way too much free time, and I said, I can't spend the rest of my life waiting for it to be 5 o'clock so I can start drinking. I said, the only way to do this is to have it never be 5 o'clock. So I just quit drinking, and I moved into a house by myself, and was divorced, I had no job, and it was very rocky, you know, but I weathered it, and it was great. I got so many friends that I never had a beer with in my life, you know, it's so crazy.